originally in Spanish, 2019.
Okay, good. Moving on with the solar system. The next planet is Saturn.
Okay, focusing only on the physical aspects, the way things are, leaving behind the esoteric meanings that the Cabal have attached to it, although some aspects do make sense. Saturn was not always in that orbit. In fact, more than or up to 12,500 years ago, it was closer to the Earth to the extent that it could be seen with your eyes, without instrumentation. It was only second in size in the firmament to Tiamat, because there was no moon, and Tiamat served as a night illumination guide for nocturnal animals, insects, and critters, as a great mirror of the sun, also known by some as Phaethon, although that name was later used for the planet Alpha Centauri A, Alphrata now. At that time, contrary to popular belief, Saturn did not contain or have its rings, although it did retain its color, the same as today. With the destruction of Tiamat, the whole order and balance of the solar system was affected, to catastrophic levels for most of the planets. Earth and Venus suffered flooding from the waters of Tiamat, which today are mostly the asteroid belt, which in itself is composed of dirty ice full of rocks and dirt, the waters of Tiamat. Venus has also suffered deluge like the Earth for the same phenomenon or reason.
And why not Mars? Where was it?
Mars was where it is now, with the influence of Jupiter's gravitation, and it suffered an almost total devastation of its surface, from which it has not yet recovered. For fluid dynamics reasons in a vacuum, Tiamat's water has moved into the inner solar system, falling mostly on Earth and Venus. During the devastation of the solar system in general, the orbits of the planets have changed. It is worth mentioning that it is not a system that circles the Sun, but rather follows it from behind in a spiral as it travels through space at high speed. If it doesn't separate from other constellations, it is only because they are also traveling at high speed, equally, but not perfectly in the same direction. It is said that this solar system, Sol 13, orbits Alcyone in the Pleiades, or that it is part of the Pleiades. That would depend on the views of those who define from where to where the Pleiades are, of course. For us, the Pleiades are those 9 stars that you know, and what is near them, like Sagittaria, period. The term disaster comes from des astro, or that there is no more astro. Ergo, destruction of an astro, Tiamat, or Phaethon for others. During the reorganization of the solar system caused by the absence of a large mass gravity at its center, Tiamat, Saturn captured a large part of debris or material from Tiamat. the larger parts fell into its interior, as happened with or in the case of Jupiter. Other parts became its smaller moons. And Saturn's rings have been formed from the debris of Tiamat. They have taken that shape at the equator by dynamics of gravity energies, the equatorial point being the center of equilibrium or least gravitational influence of Saturn's energetic toroid, reaching a balance between centrifugal and centripetal forces, holding them more or less uniformly in the same place. Awaiting comment.
Thank you, Swaruu. So on Saturn, there is bad energy produced by the black goo, and Jupiter also receives some of the negative black goo. And the rings of Saturn then have no function?
Yes, just that in the case of all the other planets, they do not have Van Allen bands or imposed 3D matrix that hold the invasive black goo in a low vibrational state. They have influence, yes, but the high 5D frequency does tend to heal those low vibrations. You also have to consider the scale of the other planets, which makes it not or not so much interfering with them because of the size of the dose. It depends on what or how you define function. They do not serve a function for the planet itself. It depends on who uses them, as we will see below. I have this question. You said, it is worth mentioning that it is not a system that circles the sun, but rather follows it behind in a spiral fashion as it travels through space at high speed. If this one is not separated from the other constellations, it is only because they are also traveling at high speed, equivalently, but not perfectly in the same direction. Where are we all traveling in the solar system? What does this journey do? It's going around the galaxy. It is an arm of the spiral. And how has it been determined that it is traveling at high speed? To determine this, you need something beside to contrast that it is traveling, right? Yes, it is contrasted with other more distant galaxies. While not perfect, it is the only possible or viable point of view or reference point. You can also calculate the rotation by comparing and observing that of other objects within the same spiral, but which are in the direction to the center of the galaxy itself and at progressively greater distance, as the rotation rate will change, as indicated mathematically by the parabola equation xh2 equals 4p yk. Thank you. And you said it's going around the galaxy. It's an arm of the spiral. Why is it going around? And what is the source of the energy that pushes this motion? Source of motion of the spiral of the galaxy, what moves everything? The source. Fluid dynamics within a medium, that is the ether. I can go into detail here, but it's another topic. You will find that space is not really a vacuum. It is only perceived as such because there is no medium of contrast, as the fish does not see the water, it just is. And if you use base 10 mathematics, you will never be able to see the other side, not even mathematically. Continuing with the Saturn. The Cabal has placed esoteric values on Saturn because its moons, unlike those of Jupiter jealously guarded by the Charistus, have been used and continue to be used as bases for countless races. They contain interstellar ship relay stations, colonies, large cities of something like 80 races. The area, until relatively recently, was dominated by regressive Sauroid Draconian, not Alpha Draconian, base races. Wow, the moons? Yes, because Saturn itself has no surface. It only increases in density progressively as you descend in the atmosphere. Saturn itself contains a lot of air-based fauna and flora, as do Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune alike, often sharing the same species on all the gaseous planets. Unlike Jupiter, Saturn does not contain a major high-density civilization. Only higher up it contains beings of light, as I have already said, with a high degree of spiritual evolution, which is hardly identified with having a specific place in the galaxy or space. All moons have life in it, some in the formation stage, as the moons of Jupiter mentioned above. All this information is incredible. I can't wait to share it. Thanks, but it is only what is known from here and at a fairly basic level.
Very coherent what you said about the gaseous species. Do these satellites have their own atmosphere and biology? Water, vegetation, etc.? Thank you.
The moon that is naturally developing the most advanced life, or in the most advanced state of planetary formation, is Titan, as expected, followed by Enceladus and Iapetus. Yes, they have an atmosphere, but of low density. For the formation of life, an atmosphere as we know it on Earth is not necessary. Biology and/or life does not need the same requirements everywhere. Since the problem of negative Sauroid races dominating the area has been removed, Saturn and its moons have become a rather peaceful place, dominated by positive and Federation races. They have large bases and colonies on their moons, as I have already said. For energy and material sustenance, the rings of Saturn are mined. There are advanced mining teams working there all the time, taking materials such as essential metals, like gold mainly. As a resupply site for spacecraft of all kinds, it is common to find large spherical biosphere spacecraft orbiting the area, either temporarily or transiently. These ships have been observed from Earth, giving rise to speculation, as they have no scientifically terrestrially acceptable explanation for what they see there, including the detection of huge mining devices in operation. Why are the races so interested in gold?
Because of the characteristics of the material, especially conductive.
I've read that it has life-extending properties for some races. That's right. Gold is very scarce and valuable for all races. It has electric transmission and piezoelectric superconduction capabilities at ambient temperatures that are not easily matched. The internal wiring of ships, including these, is solid gold. Monoatomic gold, yet another topic. It has more to do with frequencies than with chemical composition of the material. We also have solar sails, by human name, made of gold cloth. They would cost billions of dollars if they were terrestrial.
And wouldn't it be possible to make fiber optics out of quartz? I imagine it doesn't have the malleability of gold.
The problem is that if you modify quartz, you destroy it too. In theory, yes, because you can melt it and give it another shape, removing the impurities. The problem with that is that fiber optics is very backward technology, because if you can melt the quartz, you can also use other, more advanced methods for data transmission. So, roughly speaking, I think that would be the Saturn topic. Questions?
Did humans get some of those moons or Saturn with the SSP?
Yes, good question. But they have been taken there by the reptilians. Since Saturn or the Saturn region was no longer under negative control, Saturn has been taken or idealized in the secret societies. Important to mention that. Saturn is taken as the controlling base of the matrix. In part, that was true, but the area is no longer under Swaruu control. At what time was Saturn under negative control? Which years? Until 2012. Since? Since about 10,000 years ago. The last great battle was against a large negative Swaruu cube that served as a base and distribution center for merchandise, human flesh, and slaves. Cube represented in the Star Trek saga as the Borg cube. Notice how they tell you everything behind your back. Notice how a cube has 6 sides. The famous Saturn cube is a myth. The planet itself is a toroid, like any other. That is matrix disinformation, based on the pixelation of the images that are also heavily edited to erase the large polar openings that every planet has, and that are especially prominent and large in large gaseous planets. So they did consider Saturn as their god. But was the reason simply because, as you said before, in their dualistic mind they were looking for something opposite to Jupiter? Or were there other reasons why they chose Saturn? Yes, Jupiter and Saturn are opposites in the minds of secret societies obsessed with duality and balance. Jupiter being the king, Christ, Christus. Saturn, Satan, king of darkness, the horned astro, rings. I emphasize how they have not thrown Jupiter into all this, as if appropriating it, being the most imposing planet of all.
Thank you. Very interesting and coherent. Do you know approximately what dimensions that cube was and if it was totally destroyed? Thanks.
The cube was destroyed, and those who were alive there were released and sent to healing stations. The cube was about 5 kilometers each side.
Wow. One question, Swaruu. At the beginning of today's explanation, you said the following: focusing only on the physical aspects, the way that things are, leaving behind the esoteric meanings that the Cabal have attached to it, although some aspects do make sense. What do you mean by, although some aspects do make sense? I think you have already said something about this, right?
Yes, I mean what I have explained above. I mean that it is not the planet itself that has intrinsically evil or negative value or properties. That's not right. That's just a value interpretation, pinned by secret societies on a planet. What does hold certain truth to it is that it did have regressive bases that controlled the Earth matrix in many ways.
Does it have anything to do with the black cubes of the Jews?
Yes, of course. Cube as geometric representation of 666. Saturn by the controlling cube, already destroyed. But as I said, and contrary to the other matrix researchers, Saturn as a planet itself does not contain cubes at its poles. The planet is full of cubes like that. It is representation of solar worship, Atonism. What few people know is that solar worship or Atonism has its logical counterpart. Saturn contains no cubes. Black Sun worship, represented by the Nazi swastika, among other things. And it is this black sun that those of the three-horned religion, Judaism, Catholicism, Islam, worship. I mean cubes as part of their very structure of the planet, because in itself we can extend this to the Jupiter monolith, Stanley Kubrick, 2001 Space Odyssey, that does exist. And that opens up a whole new can of worms. It's something else though. It's not a cube, it's rectangle. Another conversation.
If before the Astros were arranged differently, how, for example, from Earth, did Saturn look? All this before the destruction of Tiamat. Saturn somehow already had rings, and after the destruction, they increased in size?
No, or minimal perhaps. What others are documenting in antiquity is something else. The illusion of horns, which is given because the sun is hitting in a certain way over a spherical planetary surface. What are the statues, Swaruu? Look at the statue on the right, sun with horns. Now look at this photograph.
Yes, it is the sun.
It explains everything. It's the moon with the sun hitting it from a certain angle. Just that what you were looking at was the black sun, that is Saturn, because there was no moon at that time. Someone just recently uploaded a video in which he talks about how the back side of the moon, the half not visible from Earth, was bombarded by the destruction of Phaeton, Tiamat. That's right. The biosphere ship that is now the moon was rendered useless by battle damage from Tiamat exploding near it. Note something else. My source for this, Michael Tsarion, claims that Tiamat had other names, Phaeton and or Moon or Selene. So today's moon inherited the name and job or occupation of the previous moon Tiamat. And Saturn in the distance as another more opaque and darker object being further away, ergo black sun. I still don't understand why they saw Saturn with these horns. Did they see it as big as we see the sun? I have no way of knowing how big they could see it, but big enough that they could see it as a spherical, low luminosity, ergo black object in the distance.
The sun, when it reflected off Saturn, made that horn effect.
Ah, okay. There was the sun, the second sun, Tiamat, and the black sun, Saturn. The rings came later.
Tiamat reflecting the sunlight like a mirror.
Yes. Second sun, Nibiru, Hercubolus, etc. That's why they insist it was a binary system. It is not, just that Tiamat, water planet, or solar mirror is missing. Saturn was closer, as to see that it is a sphere and effects in that sphere. But I doubt very much that it was large, barely visible as a sphere, or little more. I doubt it was closer because of its gravitational effects. Another conversation. Is Saturn a positive entity or not so much? Within duality, of course. It is under Federation control. It is just a planet. What they have pinned on it is just their sick ideas. It does not differ from another. It just is. It doesn't fall under good or bad. It's neither. It just is. I know they say the matrix is controlled from there. It is not. That is from the moon. From the point of view of the controllers, yes, but symbolically, not as an isolated entity.
Yes, but before there was a reptilian ship in the form of a cube there, right?
That's right. Notice that it had a cube shape with 6 sides. It was destroyed years ago. They say it has that on its poles, a cube. We can't find any from here. It is still a toroid like any other planet. The images they show with a cube at Saturn's poles is CGI again, all to implant ideas and agendas. It is said to be Saturn because Saturn is the representation of the black sun, which is the one the Atonians truly worship. It is not the sun per se. They consider it the anti-sun, good and evil, Ra, God, sun, versus Satan, Saturn. Yes, there is anti-sun, but that's a black hole, so they don't even get that right. Saturn is Satan. It is well known in lodge and obscurantism circles. You can see it everywhere. The Nike logo is a Saturn ring. NASA logos have a red arc, again Saturn rings. Military emblems have an airplane or a ship making a turn. It looks pretty, but it's again Saturn rings, etc., etc.
And what do those rings serve scientifically?
It's not that they serve any purpose. They are the result of many small objects accumulating at Saturn's center of gravity inertia. Billions upon billions of micromoons, from dust to rocks to asteroids. Another conversation. Saturn is full of portals. Portals leading to worlds and archon dimensions, reptilian and Maitreyan, among countless negative or regressive beings and races. It is not the planet's fault. But the negative cabal from the lower layers, like the Freemasons, to the highest of the Draconian High Command, consider Saturn as their god. He is untouchable to them. They will defend him with the greatest fanaticism you can imagine. That's why so much black cube, because they represent Saturn and its portals. As I told you yesterday, they come out in the form of rectangles, and they get represented as a cube for them, because a cube is 6 by 6 by 6. That's why the number of the devil is 666. That's why the Nazis wore black, the Gestapo, because they are priests of the cult and brotherhood of Saturn, Satan. That is why Darth Vader wears black, being the dark side of the Force, and speaks through a triangle in front of his face. Triangle that goes back to ancient Egypt with the constellation of Triangulum, as I told you before. That's why the judges in court wear black. That's why people graduate in black with a ridiculous square black hat on their heads. That's why in Mecca, a black cube is worshipped, with people circling around it, simulating the rings of Saturn. It is absolute fanaticism towards Saturn, therefore dangerous. Saturn portals. I have a question about this. Portals can be placed wherever you want? It has to do with the energetic dynamics of that geometric figure. It joins another triangle to form a Merkaba. This is in mechanics of manifestation. If you have an artificial portal, yes, it is positionable anywhere. The problem with such a portal is that, let's say I put one right where you are, right there in your flat. As long as it's active, you can go in and out. But if it's turned off, it's not. This is dangerous because we can put the exit in a very secluded place. And without control over the portal that has been left somewhere else, you could be trapped there. That is why Taygeta does not use portals as such. Not usually, at least. Ships are preferred. I ask because of portals on the Saturn. Are they artificial? Portals that lead to archontic realms. Some are artificial, the ones that are of most concern. Others are natural. All the astros have natural portals, each and every one. It is part of their existence and functioning. The dangerous thing is that we don't know which ones go where, unless we go in to explore them.
And is it the moon that provokes them especially?
Yes, because it increases the energy at some point. It is all frequencies and frequency manipulation. For a natural portal to occur, exact conditions are needed. Conditions that obey the interaction and the relationship between the elements that alter the frequency of the site. That is to say, of the objects that surround it. And the bigger one is, the more influence it will have on the place. This influence is given or executed on a place by means of gravity waves. Gravity is the flow of consciousness within a medium, and that medium is the ether. Many natural portals open only once and never return, the result of something apparently fortuitous. The coincidence of the conjunction of gravitational energies in that exact place occurs. Others are recurrent. The conditions are repeated. They are holes in the fabric of reality. They are paradox point, incomplete matrix points.
How would we see a dimensional portal if it can be seen? What form would it take? What would we see through it if we did not cross it? Can a person with their power of manifestation create a portal? I don't mean astral travel.
Most commonly, portals are not seen. They just are. You can come across them and not understand what happened. But they can be visible, like a ripple in water in that place, like midday heat rising from the asphalt of a hot road. They can also appear as a black spot or black area with nothing inside, like a big void. This is very common with square or rectangular portals in space. Monolith. That monolith being more of a monohole. It's not a piece of black material floating there. It's more like a piece with no space, the opposite. It is portrayed as an object in the movies, but Kubrick at the end also makes it clear that they are portals. A portal can also manifest as a place where you can see the other side, also common in space. A portal can often be detected not by what it is or what it looks like, but by what is missing in a place, like a black hole. Because that's what black holes are. It is said that when you enter one, things are compressed to the singularity, complete destruction. It's not like that. That's human, relativistic junk mathematics. It's just a portal like so many others. A person can not only make a portal with the mind alone. In itself, a person is a portal. But it is mostly preserved in a state where information or energy is transferred through the portal person only at a low intensity level, where it can only be seen or understood as his or her multidimensional connection to the original source, to the unified self. That is a portal. But by increasing the intensity of that energy with full intention, you can do more with that portal, and to a virtually unlimited degree. There are accounts in India of more than one monk or an enlightened person who has reached the point of becoming light and disappearing with everything and body. That is what he has achieved. To enter into himself with everything, not just consciousness.